Hello, students. Mr. Young here with the beginning of Chapter 23. This is our Chapter 23 introduction. This chapter is called Political and Industrial Revolutions, and it is one massive chapter. There are 5 lessons in this chapter to begin with, but some of it's so content heavy that I split it. So let's talk about how this chapter is going to pan out. Lesson 1, the American Revolution. The entire thing. We're talking before, during, a little bit after. It's basically marking period 1 of American Nation in 8th grade, shoved into a single lesson. So it's a little hefty, but hey, I'm into it. It's a fascinating chapter. Your sort of American Revolution basics. American Revolution 101 with Mr. Yund. I dig it. Lesson 2, the French Revolution and Napoleon. I'm excited to teach this subject because it's something I think that is undercovered in history classes typically. This lesson is so long that I split it into a part 1 and a part 2. So prepare for French Revolution. It's some fascinating and very violent stuff. A lot of off with their head in lesson 2. Lesson 3, nationalism and nation states. Alright, lesson 3 is basically after these big revolutions are rocking the world, like in the British colonies and in France, the nations that make up the world today kind of start to form, the ones that didn't exist yet. Like Germany starts to become its own state instead of multiple separate states, and things like that. Sort of the world politically starts to take the shape that we can recognize. Lesson 4, the Industrial Revolution. What is the Industrial Revolution? Well, the Industrial Revolution was basically when we started to have factories with machines that took over the work that had been done by hand. It begins in Britain, like in the early 1800s, and then it makes its way to the United States and then elsewhere, and it really changes the economy of the entire world. We'll learn all about that in 4. And lesson 5 is called Society and Industry, but really it's the culture lesson of this chapter. How are people living now that we live in an industrialized world, and with democracy, modern democracy, and all that kind of stuff. So it's the culture chapter. We talk about things like what art, what entertainment was popular at the time, what was the role of women in this time in these countries. So a lot of good history in chapter 23, and I mean a lot. So it's going to be an enjoyable chapter. We're going to learn a ton of relevant historical information, give us good background, and help us, make decisions in the modern day. So that's what we're looking like. On the very next page, you'll have your vocab. I'll be there to go over that with you, and then you'll move on to whatever vocabulary assessment I have deemed for this chapter. So it's going to be an exciting chapter, and we'll get started tomorrow. And I'm sure there'll be supplementals thrown in on Thursdays. We'll have that too. All right. I'll see you on the next page.